And hard and you aiming for the seven figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Johan Direct, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe, REI Tribe. Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to this new episode 3 of the REI Tribe Podcast. As you know, every week we bring a new entrepreneur in the real estate space to share their journey on how they come from, a solo entrepreneur to really a business owner today and up to 7 figures. And so today we have a very special guest. We have my friend Romain, who's the owner of a company called LandQuire, and we have a very specific model in the real estate space because we're going to go over it, but they're basically wholesaling and flipping land all across the states. So it's something very, very interesting. We had many guests that are more in the wholesaling space or more like flipping houses. I think you're probably the first one that specializes on those land acquisition. So first of all, welcome, Romain. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ewan, for having me.
For sure. So can you just tell a little bit more about your journey, how you got started in real estate? That would be something very interesting to
Sure. So I grew up in west part of France. I started real estate through my dad. First time I did real estate was a fix and flip we did in our old farm. Right, there was this old house that we renovated and we basically put together to rent it, right? It was the old Burr strategy. and yeah, that's how I got started. I think
That's pretty cool. So just to understand and recap a little bit, was your dad already in real estate in France, or was it a one-off this flip that you did?
No, he was a farmer. I grew up in a farm for 18 years with him. This farm, there was an old house that he always wanted to actually renovate to put to rent and have some cash flow. So I remember my first time trying to understand why he was trying to do that. And then I understood that he could bring rent by actually putting work into it. So it was really the first time I heard about real estate. I was 12 years old.
That's very funny because I had no idea, but we actually have a very similar upcoming because my family was not working in the farm, but my family business was actually selling agricultural materials. So we're selling, tractors and all of that to farmers. So very similar upcoming. So for the audience to understand, we can hear that we both have a very similar accent. We're both from France. So how did you make this switch from, living in France and growing up in France to one day be like, hey, I'm going to move to Miami in Florida and get started in this real estate journey? Can you walk us through the step that you took to get there?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a short version because it's a 6-year process between the time that I kind of quit the farm life with my dad and the time I actually arrived to Miami. In between, I was fortunate enough to basically get a scholarship to go play soccer in the US in order to get my diploma in computer science. And so after I got that computer science, 4 years later, after getting into the United States, I met my partner, Thibaut Guéon, that was already doing a lot of fix and flip and real estate in the Cleveland area. And after connecting with him, we discussed and we started putting some business plan together to work together. And I basically started sending mailers to landowners just because I remember one of my friends doing it. And after sending 2,000 mailers, I remember getting one deal where a seller called me back, an owner, and told me, hey, I've got those 2 parcels into that HOA that I bought it 10 years ago and I've been paying taxes on it, never wanted to do anything with it. And I acquired those 2 parcels for $7,000. And 90 days later, I sold them for $135,000 on seller financing. after he put, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 down. So the note was worth a lot of money, right? So I kind of got into it and I was like, okay, how do I actually put a note together? How do I get my monthly payments? How can I actually sell the note and for how much? How do I get the credit score of that buyer, to make sure my note is worth $135,000. So I got into it and tried to figure everything out. And after doing that first deal, that's really when the light went on, and I decided to just go all into land flipping, land investing, subdivisions, and now construction.
All right, sounds good. So I'm just going to rewind a little bit because on the REI Tribe podcast, not only we focus, of course, on the blueprint and what you discover in real estate, but I like to talk about the journey of the entrepreneur. And so you told us that you came to the US on a scholarship to play soccer. So I just want to understand, when you moved here, what kind of mindset were you in? Was your goal to become a professional soccer player, or was it from the beginning, it's just like a way to come to the US, but I'm going to do something else once I'm there?
My mindset shifted over time. I've always wanted to be a professional soccer player. I played for the reserve team of Stade Brestois for a couple of years in France. I was trying to get a professional contract, and it never actually worked out. It's very competitive in Europe to actually sign a professional contract. And so when I got the opportunity to come in the US, that's when I realized that I could get my studies for free, just because the university and college life here has tremendous financial aspect. They pay for everything basically. And so I played for 4 years, and I was about to do trials with some MLS team, and it was at that moment that COVID hit. Right at that moment, basically everything shut down. Like I was in vacation in Dominican Republic, and I couldn't do anything. And so my visa started to run because I had 3-year visa to stay in the US. So I either had to find a club to play professional soccer player, or I had to find a job. So I applied to 400 companies, and during COVID, it was really, really hard for international student to get a job, right? And so I did not get a job. So I decided to just go into my entrepreneurial journey and really focus on business. I think what I love in business is the fact that you can just be on your own and you take your future and your destiny into your hands.
Of course. So I would assume that, on this journey, when you were trying to become a professional soccer player, like you learn a lot about, consistency and, just like waking up every day and going after it. Do you feel it's something that helps you today in your business, having this background of being an athlete for so many years?
I totally agree with you. I think playing soccer at such a high level, being so young, helped me tremendously to launch my business career. It was the best school that I could have ever get before launching a business. All the principles that you have in soccer apply in business. So it's been a tremendous help.
All right. So when you started this first business, right after COVID, I would imagine like you were still very young back then. Like, how difficult was it? Like when you're young and getting started in business, do you feel like it's something at the beginning that you might have a little bit of difficulties, like creating authority and creating credibility? Like, how did you handle those objections?
I think again, it's all about having people around you that you can trust. Yes, I was young. I was 22 when I opened my first LLC to start this land business. But the first thing I decided with my partner to do was to hire a CEO that had 25 years of experience. So we decided not to build from the bottoms up, but from the top to bottom, our hierarchy and organization. So having we recruited a CEO and a COO. The CEO being very experienced in the M&A industry, he had done a couple exits already, and our COO was a former Wall Street default loan guy. So those two came together with us and kind of helped us to frame, a very broken down business that can really help to scale.
For sure. Do you think, like, coming back from France, I feel like sometimes this kind of like uh, limiting belief that we might have in Europe, growing up with, your age compared to while doing business and all of that. I personally started back in the day in France. I was 18 years old. And I know that until, I moved to the US, I was 24. And in those first few years, I was really struggling. I was in real estate development, dealing with people that were way older than me. And I feel like in France, you had to, really fight hard to get people to respect you. Do you think it's slightly different here in the US? I feel like the country is way more open to business, and like things such as your age are not really a limitation here as much as it would be in France.
I think nowadays in the US, you see a lot of successful young kids. I mean, you see kids being millionaires in being not even 18 now. Again, it's not everyone, but you see it. You see it. I'm in Miami, and I can see kids already being 18-year-old in Lambos. And again, doesn't mean they're successful, but they're doing well for their age. And so, yes, you see in the US a big difference compared to what you see in Europe.
Yeah, especially now that we're kind of in this digital era. I see every day, in the digital marketing space, I've seen some kids that are like 15, 16 years old starting some agencies. They even need their parents to sign up on the LLC and everything, and they're making 100K plus per month. So it's pretty impressive. It's definitely a different era, and everything is changing. So going back to this transition, like you met your partner, he was then flipping houses in Cleveland in the Midwest. Why didn't you stay in this lane of flipping houses? Like when did you decide to make this switch from, we are a house flipping company to now we are going to create a company only to flip land?
I think it comes down to, I remember my dad when he sold his farm telling me the only thing he made money on was the land. He did not make money on the business. He did not make money on the rentals he had. But the real value he created was in the land, just because he had a lot of agricultural land, mostly, and it just stick to me. And then the second time, obviously, was when I did my first land deal, right? Mm-hmm. That really the light went on. And so after that, knowing that at the time I built a very strong relationship with my partner, we just decided to go all in. We decided to go all in the land space, and it really helped us to really build our the business that we have today.
Yeah, going back to this transition to this land business. So did you like start small and then scale up, or when did you went like right out of the gate at raising capital and everything? Because from what I see, like you told me about hiring a CEO and hiring a COO and kind of like building this model like this. Was it right from the get-go, or was it like a step-by-step process?
The first strategy was to hire our executives right from the bat. And in order to hire executives, when you start a business, you need capital, right? So we needed seed capital to start, because we had zero money. I think we had less than 10,000 each to start the business. So really nothing crazy. We had no working capital to basically put a team. So we decided, instead of selling equity and do a typical, pre-seed round, seed round, or Series A, we decided to just raise a bunch of debt. And obviously raising debt when you're a startup is pretty much impossible. So we just did it with friends and family, right? So we went out and started raising debt on a fixed coupon that we extended for another 3 years. That helped us to basically get $2.1 million in the door in the first 6 months. And with that $2.1 million, we basically built an entire team. We did a bunch of transactions to kind of build a track record, and that helped us to now do our first equity round that just closed actually last month, $3.5 million for a $30 million valuation.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that. Can you deep dive a little bit more on the LandQuire model? You told me that your first transaction, you found this piece of land basically that was undervalued, and then you flip it to an end buyer. but you flipped it on seller finance. So it means you created a note basically, and you're getting paid every month. So if I understand, it's more like a cash flow business. Like you're not getting a huge check at closing. It's more like a balance sheet kind of model where you're cash flowing every month, right?
So that was personally, right? There's different type of ways you can run your land business, but yes, one of them being buying on seller financing and selling on seller financing. Some of them buy cash and then sell on seller financing, keep a lien on the property, and if the buyer default and misses payment, they get the land back. I started personally doing seller financing. We started at LandQuire doing for the first 3 to 4 months seller financing, but then we realized that we were kind of stuck for the growth. So we kind of stopped that model and decided to really focus on cash sale. So we have a little bit more velocity with the cash that we have and the working capital we have. So it really depends. I think we bought over the last 24 months, we bought I think 350 parcels. Depending on the offer coming when it's on the market, we can negotiate partially seller financing, partially cash up front. It really depends of the offers and where it's located and what kind of parcel it is.
Okay, so talking about the parcel by itself, what kind of land are we talking about? Because when you tell me land, I'm thinking a lot of different things. I'm thinking, farmland, or maybe like commercial land, or maybe residential parcels. Like what kind of land do you invest in? First question. And second question would be, what does your end buyer do with this land? Are they going to just, put a trailer on it and a barbecue for the weekend, or are they going to actually build a house on it?
So again, in the land space, you've got agricultural, you've got residential. In residential, you've got infill lots, you've got multifamily lots, you've got lots that are a little bit outside of the city outskirts, a little bigger, and then you've got commercial and industrial. We started by doing residential infill lots just because it was just more entry level, where you buy for 10,000, sell for 20. You kind of like try to flip your money as quick as possible, and there's a little bit more demand for those lots. And then over time, we started sending offers for a lot of different parcels, and that helped us to kind of get knowledge in the agricultural, commercial, and industrial as well. So now, like right now, we've basically, I think, we've done any kind of land. Like we acquired any type of land, if that makes sense.
So you're really an expert in land investing all across the board, like any kind of land you've done it so far.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert, just because there's always things that you learn. But we've got a solid track record showing what we've bought. Yeah.
Okay. And so as far as the end user, like let's talk about residential, because obviously, farmland, it's all by itself. They're going to probably exploit it. And, but for residential, like what would be the end user goal? Would it be to build a house, or would it be to just like keep it like this and hopefully get an upside in several years? Or even here, like in very large metropolitan area, I heard people living in the city center and then buying those land in the suburb to just like go on weekend, have like a trailer or an RV or something like that. So I'm curious to know what do they do with those lands?
I think your question, you partially answered it. When it's residential, most of our buyers are looking to obviously build a house on it, but we also have people doing land banking. So land banking is just a process of buying something, hoping that it's going to go up in value in the future. So more long-term investors that are local and that believe in the growth of the city. So it's kind of both. We also have some trailer people. We have some manufactured home modular people that come in. And then we've got the little bit more sophisticated people that want to build multifamily on it.
How do you most of our guest speakers are more on the residential single family space, so we talk a lot about method of marketing. How do you acquire those properties? How do you go about finding those deals? Because you have a great business model. We have a better understanding of like the blueprint, how you build this model. Now, how do you actually find deals?
I think there's a lot of ways to find deals in the land space. You're an expert at digital marketing, so you understand that your leads can come from a lot of different sources, right? For us, what worked the best for the first 24 months was mailers. We focused on becoming very, very good at mailers. And the fact is, the land industry is have people a little bit older in the demographic compared to people owning rentals, for example. So we just focused on putting great mailers out with a price on it and a letter of intent directly in the mailer.
Wow.
And we basically mastered a process to send mailers at scale, where at the end of 2022, I think we were sending 100,000 mailers a month.
So that's a key point here. You're telling me that basically in your mailer that you send, it's not like a basic postcard. We buy houses or we buy land. It's actually a contract. It's actually a letter of intent with a price. So you already underwritten the property. You already know how much you're willing to pay for it, and you're making an offer directly to the seller. Let me ask you a question. Does letter come back already signed, or do you still have to, close over the phone?
I think if I had to give you guys a KPIs, last year we probably had one signed returned LOI every 5,000 mailers on average.
Oh, wow.
And again, the hard part is not to get it back signed. The hard part is to send an offer up front that makes sense for us, meaning that our data team was really focusing on putting a good price on it. And typically we need to be in the 30 to 50% range of the actual land value. So that's kind of like the tricky part for us. It was to really figure, okay, if I know I'm going to sell that parcel for $100,000, how do I send at scale 30 to 40K offers? So then we can dive into the pricing methods and how you're going to price it based on the comps that you find out there. But
sorry to cut you off, but what really blew my mind is someone receiving a contract from a company that they don't know and just signing the contract and sending it back. Because, I come from residential, from wholesaling. And so obviously there's many wholesalers out there, many investors, plus a real estate agent and everything. So we kind of have to go through this process. Sometimes it takes 8, 9, 10 follow-up calls to really build this rapport with the seller and get them to like you, to understand you, and I accept your offer.
Yeah.
It's just mind blowing for me that you just send a mailer and like the mailer come back signed.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of like people signing your contract and then ghosting you, or do they usually like respond well after those contracts come back?
Well, typically, if they signed, it's because they are interested in selling. And again, the residential side is completely different than the land side, just because if you own land, you're emotionally not as attached as the house that you own, right? It's completely different mindset. Most of the transaction we do, it's someone that inherited the property. It's someone that has been paying taxes on the land for 15 years and are too old to build. So when they receive a mailer and they have cash in front of them, it's like we basically tell them, hey, if you sign, we can send you the cash in 15 days.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, because it's true that, when you talk with you negotiate with an homeowner on their house, even though the house might be, completely outdated, and you can be like, the tile that you choose suck. But for them, they choose it, so they're emotionally attached to it, as opposed to land, where it doesn't matter really if they inherit the parcel or if it's something that they bought more as an investment, like, I dropped 10K on this parcel 20 years ago. They are not really emotionally attached. At the end of the day, it's just like a number.
Yeah, I don't think I would recommend to do mailers for, typical wholesalers in the residential industry, just because there's so much tools now to do cold calling, SMS, and just Facebook ads, all that. The return on ads, I think, would be better to just apply the typical SMS and everything I mentioned. But for mailers, for an older industry like land, older demographic, I think mailers still make sense.
For sure. So can you tell us, give us the short version of the underwriting? I imagine that it's way more complex, and it's not something we can just explain, but in just 5 minutes. But if you can give me a short overview of, your underwriting process, to be able to send a mailer with a price that you are confident at buying this property at this price. So what does it look like? Or did you I assume you probably have a very strong process in place. It's almost like an assembly chain to be able to do all those mailers.
Yeah, it's truly an assembly chain of information that you can aggregate into the CRM and really making sure you're not missing anything. So it's kind of we have a team, I think, right now of 12 to 15 people on the acquisition side that analyze parcels on a daily basis. But the first thing, obviously, is to verify that all the owners are alive. You want to make sure that the parcel has great access, right? If you're landlocked, typically it's something that we're gonna just pass on just because it's too much work in getting an easement from the neighbor. It's not impossible. I know people that focus on it, but it's not our line of business. We really focus on scale. Then you focus on obviously figuring if there's any flood zone, any wetland. Those are things that you look at. You look to see if there's any survey available. You look at the zoning, right? What can you build on it? Some sellers don't even know the zoning, and that's where the money is made. They think they can build one home, but you can just do a 12-month process to entitle it for a 10-unit. So those are really where you make the greatest ROI. And then whenever, obviously, we get a parcel under contract, we want a local broker to go on ground, take some pictures, and give us some comps, right? What can you sell this at realistically in 90 days, right? You want to really build a relationship with a broker and get his fair opinion on it. Right, whether it's a CMA, a BPO, or a full appraisal, right? For bigger parcel, I really recommend doing appraisals because it's a little bit more complicated, especially for industrial, commercial, and multifamily parcels. And then obviously, when they get all the information for our team, then they present it. They present it in front of the board, and the board basically asks questions and then make sure that they can approve this parcel for financing, whether it's debt or to our retail investors.
Okay, so it seemed to be a very intensive approach. Like you need a lot of manpower to do all of that and do all those research and everything. Do you guys have a team in office here in Florida that handle that, or is it virtual assistant overseas?
So we don't do virtual assistants. We only do full-time employees, and we have two offices, one in San Salvador, in the country of El Salvador, downtown, a very high-end building, very secure, for which we have, I think, 25 people. We have our Miami office, where we have all the heads of departments and the executives. And then we have our entire data team that is in Bangladesh. They're full-time. I don't really like to go through agencies, just because I'm all for it when you get started, go through an agency because you don't have time to recruit. You have no HR department. But once you grow, I think to build the culture of your company, it's good to have people within your payroll and people that share the same vision.
For sure. So if I understand correctly, no one is working virtually. No, doesn't matter in what country they're located. They're working actually in a LandQuire office in every one of those countries.
Correct.
Okay, that's very impressive. So this acquisition team that do all the underwriting, are they located in South America or are they in Bangladesh?
So everything that is data, so pricing, sending mailers, grabbing data, sourcing data, everything that is data, KPIs, is in Bangladesh. Everything that is toward actually being on the phone with a seller, so everything that is acquisition or disposition with buyers and sellers, is in San Salvador and Miami.
Okay. So can I ask you why you differentiate between those countries? Is it a matter of cost, or is it because you find some skill set in Latin America that you can't really find in Bangladesh?
I think what I found in San Salvador is a workforce that was able to get their degree in the US, but then return to their country because of a lack of visa. And the fact that they did that, they have pretty much a better accent than me, and that's not hard to have. So having that, I just simply realized that they're on the same time zone and they can just be calling people in the US. When it comes to Bangladesh, it's just amazing to see how great they are at data and just in technology overall. They can't just do anything. They built an HR app for us. They built our entire IT system. They built all the pricing models. I mean, they come out of school over there, and they're like almost like CTOs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I came to the same realization, that my team is fully virtual in different country, but most of the team right now is in Colombia. Just because, so
Yeah.
we have team members in India for all the tech stuff,
Same
but
thing. Yeah.
then it's Colombia for all the client facing people, just because they're very close to the American culture. It's 1 hour time difference, and it's impressive. Like I came to the same realization. They have a way better accent than I do. And not only that, but it doesn't shock anyone in the US, especially here in the South, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, everybody has a Latino accent. So it goes very, very well on the phone, and it's very efficient. And I think the talent that we can find right now in Latin America is really extraordinary when it really became very difficult to find talent here in the US since COVID. There has been kind of like a shift. So yeah, it's very efficient, and it's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I think it works well for a lot of real estate companies for sure.
Exactly. So now that we understand a little bit more the acquisition process, now can you walk us through how do you sell those land? Because it happened a few times for me back in the day when I was, focusing on my wholesale company. I would buy a lot of houses, and then once in a while I would end up with a piece of land. For the quick story, because it's I find it kind of funny, even though it didn't make me laugh back in the days. I used to buy a lot of houses at auction in Detroit, and then I would do the auction online with my team from Florida, and we would bid on a lot of houses, and we would buy a portfolio of 20, 30 houses. And then one day I ended up, so I would travel to Detroit with the list of the property that I actually bought, that I won at auction. And I was with my project manager, driving in the street, and we were looking for houses that I bought. And there was only like a giant hole instead of the house, because the house between the picture that you could see on Google Street and online, and today the city actually demolished those houses because they were in pretty bad condition. So I ended up thinking that I bought houses at auction. I ended up with a piece of land, which brings me to the story of this piece of land. I tried to sell them for several years. I ended up giving it away on seller financing to a neighbor, but I had a very hard time because I was an expert in the residential real estate. I had the buyer to buy those houses, but I didn't add any buyers for pieces of land. So explain to me a little bit more how does that work? Like, where do you find those buyers?
Like in everything you want to sell, obviously you want to drive traffic to, for people to see what you have to sell, right? So it comes down to digital marketing, making sure you have a great piece of content going out with pictures, drone of the parcel, exact description of what can and can't you do with the parcel. Making sure the buyer feels secure, by doing the transaction. They know the title company, they know the broker, and obviously there's, like in anything in sales, you want to have a process in place, a funnel in place to take a potential lead that is interested in buying it to actually signing the contract and wiring the money. So we use a different platform like land.com, we use Zillow, we use Trulia, we basically use the MLS like any other real estate investor.
So you have a listing agent in every city that you find, because you guys are statewide, right? You really do, like in any state across the US, you've done some deals. You're not limited to one market, right?
We are in 35 different states at the moment. And it's a mixture of having a real estate agent on ground and doing flat fee MLS. If we see that after 3 months the flat fee MLS don't bring us enough leads, or we can't close the leads, then we can decide on switching to having a broker on ground.
Okay. Are you also doing any like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, this kind of platform, or not?
We do Facebook. I don't think we do Craigslist, but Facebook, yes.
Okay. All right, that's very interesting. And so now for the other part of your journey, now you're kind of transitioning. You're still doing obviously a big amount of like land deals. You told us, how many deals are you doing again in land, pure land?
I think last year we did 200 plus transaction. Now, again, it's not about the volume of transaction you do. It's really, okay, how much equity can you create, whether you just buy and sell or you buy and title, upzone, and then sell, right? That's the most important. Out of the 200 transaction, there was maybe 5 or 6 potential subdivision that now we are finishing the process of entitlement, and it's going to result in potentially over 1,000 unit to build, whether it's SFR or multifamily. So, and that transition to our new construction company, because obviously we don't want to let it go. We want to build it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this new phase in the development of your company. Now you're not only buying land, but you're actually becoming a real estate developer. You're going to build on those parcels. I think you told me that your focus right now is on prefab house, right, and mobile home. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, manufactured home became since the last December, I'd say, it became our kind of like the majority of our income now, just because we found niches of subdivision on which we could buy land that is already entitled for manufactured home, and for which we can put a home in place in less than 6 months, just because the manufactured home is already built in the manufacturer. So we started focusing on that, and since January we acquired 80 lots that is now being processed to install a manufactured home. So the process is a little bit on the operational side, it's a little bit more work, but on the back end, you now have a potential buyer that can get an FHA, conventional, SBA, USDA loan. So it's really, we know that whenever it gets listed, we get offers quicker than in the land industry.
Let me ask you that. You have a very successful business in the land. You've been like perfecting your process over time. It can be surprising to see that now you're making a switch to more like building and construction and all of that. So I want to ask, is it because you realized at some point that you were leaving too much profit on the table by just flipping the land? Or is it something else? Like what makes you transition really from just flipping land to now become a full real estate developer?
I think it was more of a cash flow decision. We just realized that the process of buying land, putting manufactured home, and selling it would have a higher IRR compared to actually buying land and selling it. The time frame between buying and selling land is much longer than actually putting a home on it, because now you have a finished product for a retail buyer. So that's what we just had to compare both and be like, where do we want to go? Do we want to keep on buying parcels in the middle of Arizona, wait a year and a half before it's sale, and then not being sure if we get a cash offer? Or do we actually take the parcels that we already acquired, put a manufactured home on it, and then sell it through a retail buyer? And it seems like our investors' IRR is higher this way.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's a matter of cash conversion cycle. The cash conversion cycle is way shorter when you build a finished product than when you're actually just flipping the land.
Correct. And we did not decide to go in modular or full-on construction, brick and mortar, just because manufactured, you don't really have the construction risk. Like the manufactured home comes in 2 pieces and gets installed on ground. So yes, like you still have some risk in the transport. You got to make sure you have your insurance right. You got to make sure that the person installing the manufactured home has experience. But as soon as it's done and the septic is installed, and you've got your certificate of occupancy, then it's like that it's ready to be sold through an FHA. Typically, it will be FHA buyers for us.
So when you tell me manufactured home, in my opinion, what I hear in my head, what I hear is like affordable housing. So I want to ask, with the current market condition, obviously we had 2-3 years that were totally insane in real estate here in the US with COVID and all of that. The price really jump up. But in the last 6 months, we see kind of like the market flattening a little bit. What do you feel like this positioning your company right now in the affordable housing is what is actually going to allow you to kind of weather the storm? Because, you know, everybody needs affordable housing, and modular home is probably, you know, at the bottom of the market. So you won't have like such a variation in price in case of a recession.
Well, I'll give you a very simple example. Yesterday, I got an offer for a pre-construction manufactured home in Okeechobee, Florida, and it's a teacher, right? She has 3 kids. She's probably making, I think I need to ask my dispo guy, but I think she was making like $60K a year. And we just contracted with her at $290,000 for a brand new manufactured home on 1 acre. Do you really think if you're a teacher at $60K a year, you can afford much more than that? I don't think so. So we basically are helping everyone that wants space, right? Their own home, but cannot afford a traditional home. Because in Florida, it's really hard to have a brand new home for less than $300,000. You got to be really good. You got to know some builders having insane quality material and cheap prices.
It's almost impossible. I would even say that here in South Florida, anywhere between West Palm and Miami,
it's impossible.
You get really like a house in the hood for 300,000. Like it's impossible to find anything. So.
And here it's a brand new product. So technically, you know, do you want to buy something in the hood that is all broken down and you got to redo all the paints and you don't want that when you're a young teacher and you have, you know, already 2 or 3 kids.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that you're making this switch, is it going to be only manufactured home, or are you going to like do as well, like, you know, regular I don't know, apartment building development, land development? What is your vision for the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I keep on digging the businesses that work, right? You don't want to take it away. So we've got nowadays our holding, right, that have the land side, the land business where we just flip land, acquire and flip. We've got our HouseQuire, which is a manufactured home, on which we try to do right now between 15 to 20 a month. And then we've got our REI, that is our construction, a true construction company being put together for next year, on which we will do multifamily construction.
All right. And those multifamily construction, is it going to be on land that you already acquire, that you have in your real estate holdings?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. So let's just talk about, you know, your group of company as a whole, because that's something that, you know, most of our audience might be, you know, solo entrepreneur, and they might be like, oh, how is this guy managing all those different activities and all those different companies? But what I want everybody to understand is that you already have a group of companies, you're already structured, you have executive, you have a CEO, you have a CEO. And obviously, how many employees do you have right now in your company?
I think under the payroll, we're around 50, something like that.
Around 50. Yeah. Okay, so it's not Romain just like jumping from, you know, acquisition to disposition. It's everything now is kind of automated, and you have people that are accountable in every step of the way, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, like any other business or soccer team or any sports team, you got to find people you can rely on. And I take pride into what my team has been able to accomplish, just because they're part of what we're trying to build. It's not just Romain. It's not just Thibaut, my partner. It's us, right? It's us as a group that is trying to, you know, learn and become great at real estate. Most of our people are under 30-year-old. So they're still, you know, they're in the early stage of their career, and they're trying to find themselves somewhere that they like to work, build culture, make money, and just see a future.
Of course, and you're in the perfect city to do that, because what else than Miami to build all of that? I think it's a perfect mix of lifestyle and entrepreneurship.
It is. I agree, 100%.
Absolutely. So, what is your vision as a business owner? I understand that now you're not switching your model from land to modular home and new development, you're actually adding some components, some division to your group of companies. What is your vision like moving forward? Like, do you intend to add some more component to this group of companies?
Absolutely. It comes to a point where it's not about money anymore. You're just trying to like build your empire, right? You're trying to build something that is meaningful, something that is bigger than you. And so I do think that our company would benefit from some strategic alliance. And strategic alliance, I mean M&A, acquiring some already existing companies, right? It can be a CPA firm, it can be a title company, it can be a construction company, it can be a permits company. So there's a lot of different already created companies that have a track record out there that we are looking at and trying to really see if we can potentially acquire.
Okay, so it would be we've been staying in this scope of like the real estate industry and investment industry. Your whole idea would be to basically vertically integrate every component of the chain. So it would be the title company, because since you're already doing all those land deals and construction, obviously you're probably spending a lot of money in closing attorneys and title company every year. So why not do your own? And the CPA firm, like what would be the role of like this tax planning and CPA?
So we the reason why we got here that quickly was because we had already pre-existing relationship, especially my partner Thibault, that has been raising capital from French investors for the last 10 years. So this network of investors really helped us to get to where we are, and I'm really thankful to to have them with us, to whether they invested in the company or whether they invested in the deals. But yeah, they are all outside of the US. They all created an LLC. So eventually, obviously, we need to help them on a yearly basis to file taxes, give them tax advice, and plan ahead. So right now we've got obviously a third party doing it, multiple third party doing it, and if we can keep that in house in the future, I think that would be a good added benefit for them.
Absolutely, and I can imagine, because as you know, it's been part of my background for years as well to raise money overseas, and I know that sometimes you have this complexity that can be a little bit difficult to manage for an American CPA, because you have to understand not only the tax laws here in the US and how to leverage, depreciation and everything, but you have to understand the tax code in Europe as well, or in any country really where your investor would be located, because there is, convention between countries, but there is some things to watch out for. So I would assume having a CPA firm in-house would be very valuable for your investor.
Correct.
Going back to those investors that you raise money from, is this one of the reasons as well why you're looking now into getting in this, acquiring new businesses? Is it because of your scale now, you kind of have access to funds that you didn't have access to before, and so you have no more capital to kind of like go out there and find opportunities to generate returns?
It will be helpful for sure. Now, that division of the business will be called ShareQuire, share being equity acquire, for which we will basically analyze companies to acquire, and then whenever we get a term sheet and we're on the contract for a potential acquisition, then we have a different options, right? We've got the traditional debt through SBA loan, through conventional, and working with local banks. But I don't think it will be enough, right? So having that pocket of friends and family and retail investors will be super helpful to get on the capital stack for us to do a debt offering or a straight equity offering for them to participate in the growth of that subsidiary. So different options. First, we're just focusing at finding good deals.
Okay, sounds good. So if one of our listeners, so first of all, thank you so much for sharing all this value today. I'm sure we have people in our audience that are going to get inspired. Maybe they're already wholesaling a few lots here and there, or maybe they're kind of like going to transition from the segment of different segment of real estate because of all this value that you share. So thank you for putting this whole segment of the industry in light. Now, if some of our listeners don't really want to, go through all those hurdles of, learning a totally different industry, learning all those processes, obviously it takes a lot of people, to do what you're doing. And I always recommend, when I was doing wholesaling and flipping at scale, I had a lot of opportunities for multifamily, and everybody was like, oh, why not start a syndication and everything? And I always say, I'm an expert in one thing and I want to be focused on one niche. So if I want to invest in apartment building, I will find the best syndicator out there and I'm going to just give him money to invest with him. So that's what I would recommend, except if someone has a shift in mindset because they listen to you and they really want to start their own business. If they already have a successful residential business, why not investing alongside an experienced operator in this field? So let me ask you, if someone today want to invest with you, what kind of opportunities can you provide? How would that work?
Yeah, so we have a platform called LandQuire.com on which we have all the new offerings available. You can invest in our manufactured home portfolios. You can invest in our land investing offerings. Everything is done by the book with the proper SEC regulations. We have a full legal team behind it that support what we do. Investment tickets are between $25,000 to roughly $200,000. That's where we see, most of our investors coming with on the table. And in the future, we will be doing some equity offering for businesses to invest in businesses. So that's where the platform will become very valuable, because people can come in and just look at the deals, analyze them, ask questions, be in touch with our investor relation team, right? We have 15 people full-time answering questions to our investors, giving customer support. And then you have access to everything on the platform, right? You have access to the offering. You can sign the document. You can wire the funds directly in the platform. You can have updates directly in the platform, 24/7 customer support. So all those things are really helping us to make the experience of investing passive, but fun, right? If you don't want to do the job, that's really for people that don't want to really do the job to invest in real estate. They want passive returns.
Absolutely. So the name of the platform is LandQuire, is that right? And
Correct.
It's a marketplace basically that regroup all of your offerings. So
Correct.
it doesn't matter if you want to invest in land or if you want to invest in those how do you call it? Prefab,
manufactured home.
Manufactured home.
Yeah.
You can find everything in this marketplace.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. And once again, even though you have like team virtually in different markets, you are a US based company. You have an office here in South Florida. So if the client wants to, check you out, you're a legit company with an office and everything and a presence here in South Florida.
Correct.
All right. Sounds good. So now I would say my last question, I mean, do you have any parting words that you want to leave the audience with? Anything, any specific advice or anything that you encounter maybe on your journey and you want to share with the audience?
I think one thing that stick to me that I listened on the podcast, the guy was saying, when you get started, concentration is key, right? Concentration, I mean, in your business, right? You don't want to do diversification in different businesses too early. So I think if you're still under $1 million in revenue, I think you would want to focus on that business that you really want to be an expert at it. Whenever you get above $1 million, which is only 4% of American companies, right? So if you get above $1 million, you're in the 4%, and that's great. Now you want to stay above the 1 million in revenue, and to do so, I think diversification is key as well. To really verticalize your services and making sure that you have different risk adjustment in the services and product you sell.
Basically, under 1 million, you perfect your fine print, your business. You put the right people in place, and it's only after 1 million, because probably at this stage you already put the right people in the right seat, so you can kind of like step out of the business and work more on the business than really in the business. The company can basically live without you. Then it's only then that you can expand in different niche and create different companies.
Yeah.
So basically you would say to someone that is just getting started in wholesaling, don't go don't go start a title company, don't go start anything else until you're at this step that you can really step off, right?
Correct. That would be my advice.
All right. Very good advice. So last question, if people want to reach out to you directly, where can we find you?
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Romain Daniellou, you'll find me pretty much anywhere.
I will put in the comment below your information so people can reach out to you directly. Well, Romain, thanks again for being here on the show today. It was a lot of fun. So I'm sure we provided a lot of value to the audience. So thanks again.
Thank you, Johan. Appreciate it.
And hard, and you aiming for the 7 figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver. Success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Johan Direct, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe. REI Tribe. Let's go.